What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and as you all know, this is my absolute favorite data set that we look at every single month. And that's because when I'm trying to get that macro level view, like that 50,000 foot hobby level view, I think we take more away from this video than any other data set that we do. And you know, we do a ton of data dives on this channel. And that's because we're going to be looking at the actual grading volumes from some of the biggest grading companies out there. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the most graded sets. We're going to be looking at the most graded single cards. We're going to be looking at the most graded characters. We're going to look at gem rates for all of these companies. Like, there's so much information to take out of this video, and I get so incredibly excited to share it with you every single month. Now, I will say this. We do tons of data dives like this, as I said just a minute ago, and if that kind of stuff gets you excited and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, we would love for you to do that. We're building an amazing community. Would love for you to be a part of it. If you like the content, give us a thumbs up, and if you have questions or comments, drop them down below. We do a ton of work on this video, and those three small things go a long way in helping me out. Best way to say you appreciate the work that we put in. So with that out of the way, I always like to kind of explain what we have going on slide one, because there is a lot. So that left graph over there, that has all four of the big four grading companies on there and their total grading volume by month since January of 2022. Now, you might have missed that the other three grading companies are there at the bottom because PSA is so far and away above everybody else. It is like there is no second place. There's PSA and then everybody else down there at the bottom. So to give the other companies the love that they deserve, because they're doing a lot of awesome work in those other companies as well. You pull PSA out in the middle, you just have those three. And then on the far right, we have the actual TCG grading numbers for those four companies, right? We're going to look at their month over month growth and year over year growth. And again, I just think that is a great view into what's going on in the hobby. And when you look at those year over year numbers, which we'll talk about in a minute, I think it is incredibly exciting. Now, I will say this, there have been a couple things in the last couple videos that I have called out, and we'll talk about them later on, that have given me a little bit of concern, not worry, not I don't know, I'm not freaking out. I don't think there's anything wrong with the TCG space. Matter of fact, I think the TCG space is stronger than it's been in a long time. Sword and Shield is fire. Scarlet and Violet, I think, is off to a great start. So we're in a very good spot. But just from some of these grading volumes, there was a couple things that I've called out, and those trends have continued. So we'll share that with you too as we get into this. Now, last month, we talked about PSA. Look at the graph on the far left, right? We talked about PSA, and we saw a dramatic dip in PSA's overall grading volume. That was very un-PSA-like. But guess what? This month, PSA came roaring back, and they graded over 1.3 million total cards. That is an insane number to try and think about. Over 1.3 million cards graded in a single month. That is absolutely nuts. But not to be outdone, look at the middle graph right there. Like, once we strip PSA out, you can start to appreciate all the good things that CGC and SGC have been doing. Now, I know PSA is buying SGC, but I promise you, SGC is still operating as an independent subsidiary. They won't truly integrate their brands for a while. If they ever do, I'm sure there's some leadership conversations, but I've been through stuff like this. So I promise you, SGC is gaining all of this momentum on their own, or they might be getting a little bit of love from the hobby since everybody knows PSA acquired them. But no matter what, that growth line started in the middle of last year. This isn't just some random pop because of some good news coverage for SGC. They have been doing awesome. It is great to see them. But you know what's really exciting? CGC grades even more cards than SGC. So hey, listen, CGC is not my favorite, but that doesn't mean anything because obviously there are a bunch of people out there who think it's awesome. So a really strong month for CGC. But then unfortunately, we got to talk about the person at the very bottom, which is poor Beckett. I love Beckett so much, and I just want them to figure it out, and I just want them to be great. I remember as a kid sprinting to the mailbox to try and pick up my Beckett magazine because the internet didn't exist, and that was the only way I could check on the prices of my cards. But alas, Beckett, I think, has kind of pigeonholed themselves into a black label only company. I think people just don't send, nobody sends to them trying to get a gem mint. They only send the best of the best trying to get that black label, and I think that just limits the number of cards that end up going to them. But when you look on the far right, you look at the month over month and the year over year numbers, there have been some really exciting things going on. PSA is obviously, you know, the one who stands out the most. They're up 7% month over month in TCG cards that have been graded and up 10% year over year. That is nothing to shake a fist at. Those are two really solid numbers. When you look at CGC just in the TCG space, right, they're down 1% month over month, so basically flat, but year over year, they're up 135%. Good for you, CGC. Then you get to Beckett. Beckett's down 7% month over month, and they're down 12% year over year. I don't know what else can I say, like womp womp, poor Beckett. But then SGC, again, down month over month, but a really strong year over year number. And when I'm at least analyzing things, like I'm looking for year over year growth. So down 36% month over month in the TCG space, but up 120% versus last year. That is really exciting. I think that is good for those companies, and I'm excited to see them grow, because I have always said I don't think PSA should be alone at the top. I need another grading company to come out and push them to innovate, push them to be better. But right now it's PSA and then really nobody else. So we'll just have to see what happens in the years to come. Maybe AI grading will take off. I know I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. So next thing we talk about is the most graded individual sets. And this has been a fun list to watch over the last 6 to 8 months, because English 151 and Japanese 151 have been going toe-to-toe there at the very top. And one of the things I wanted to call out is when these numbers are compiled, these are cards that are graded for the month. So depending on, if you've submitted to PSA or not, I'm sure you know this as I do, depending on the service level that you pick, your cards could take a month, 2 months, 3 months to get graded. So when I think about Japanese 151 coming in second place this month, I do think that they'll probably leapfrog English 151 next month. I think a lot of people probably sent in with value bulk, right? Like that reprint is still relatively fresh. You can get booster boxes for, I don't know, 70, 80 bucks nowadays. So I do think Japanese 151 is going to go ahead and leapfrog. Now, there's a couple things that are really exciting to me here. I love seeing that 1999 Pokemon game so high up there. Just so you know, that includes first edition, it includes shadowless, it includes base set. Like all of them are lumped into that one 1999 Pokemon game number, but still almost 800,000 of those cards have been graded. I love seeing that the hobby is still so into that 1999 Pokemon game. The other thing I'm really excited about is Temporal Forces is on here, okay? Now, I have been saying for the last couple months, like I am a low-key closet Temporal Forces fan, which I've said it so much, I guess I'm not in the closet about it anymore. I am a loud and proud Temporal Forces fan. But when I see a set that is on this most graded sets list so early, it tells me that there's a lot of interest in the singles, right? There must be a lot of people out there who have a lot of belief in the singles. They're sending them into PSA to get them graded, because you don't typically grade cards you're going to play with. These are collectors and investors who are sending these cards in. So for me, I think this is a great sign for the future prospects of Temporal Forces. I absolutely love seeing it on there. Now, V-Star Universe won't go away. It's equivalent to a card we're going to look at on the very next slide, but V-Star Universe with almost 425,000 cards graded is absolutely insane. On that side of the thing, that could be a little bit of an oversaturated population. I know the cards are awesome. I know that they have all kinds of our favorite Pokemon on there, but almost 425,000 graded with 6,000 graded last month alone. Like, I don't know, maybe there's going to be 500,000 of those cards graded. That gives me a little bit of a pause. Now, I do like seeing Evolving Skies on here. Again, as I said, these are cards that were actually graded, so I'm sure when Evolving Skies started to shoot up there a couple months ago, a bunch of people took their minty copies of all those alt arts from Evolving Skies, sent them into PSA. They finally got graded last month, and so Evolving Skies pop up here. But this is a really cool list of most graded sets, and I think this is awesome, and I think this is really, really encouraging. Now, to talk about the most graded cards, now, I talked about V-Star Universe never going away from the set list. Well, Pikachu with gray felt hat refuses to go away from the card list. Almost 43,000 Pikachu with gray felt hats have been graded. And if you go down that list, I mean, there isn't even a close second. The only card that is over that is that Charizard Holo from the 1999 Pokemon game. And not for nothing, that card is almost never on this list. So again, as I said, when I love seeing people so interested in the origin of the game, I get equally excited when I see this Charizard Holo card on here. I think that is really exciting. I think that's really, really cool. So many people are getting that card graded. But Pikachu with gray felt hat, one of the things I will call out about it is if you look in that far right column, that is growth versus April. So it was actually down 24%. Even though there was 4.8 thousand of them graded, even though it was the most graded singles card last month, the trend is down. So maybe we are ending the near of this onslaught of Pikachu with gray felt hat getting graded. We'll just have to wait to next month and see what happens. Now, last month we saw a couple One Piece cards on here. They didn't make any representation this month. We didn't see any One Piece on the most graded sets list. So I don't know if we'll see any One Piece. You're just going to have to keep watching to find out, but it was a little disappointing to me. I was excited to see One Piece get all the momentum, but unfortunately, throughout these first two slides, no One Piece is on here. Now, I do love seeing Shiny Treasures and Paldean Fates on here. I think that's really exciting. We got a couple cards from both of those sets on here. Again, I think that's a good thing. And then, of course, Charizard has dominated this list. We don't typically see one individual character dominate the list, but last month, Charizard had 5 cards on here. This month, Charizard has 5 cards on here. Like, that is nothing to shake a fist at. If you're asking me, I think it's simply because we haven't seen a lot of big other cards come out from Scarlet and Violet, so I think everybody's in the Charizard grading zone, and maybe if we get some other big sets, we'll start to see some other characters on here, but right now Charizard is dominating this list 2 months in a row. The next thing that we're going to talk about right here This is my own little category, and I started this obviously way back when, a couple years ago, but I was tracking the total number of what I call ball sports, so baseball, basketball, and football cards that are graded, and I was comparing it to the total number of TCG cards that are graded, and that's because I have a firm belief that in the long run, TCG is going to become more popular than baseball, basketball, and football combined. I don't know when that's going to happen, and I'm not saying that's going to, I don't know. I truly believe that from a graded card perspective, there will start to be more TCG cards graded than those other three combined. However, for 2024, I could not be more wrong. Baseball, basketball, football have absolutely dominated TCG. And if you look at that blue line, which is the TCG line right there, it has actually been on a downward trend while the baseball, basketball, and football trend has been up. Now, I will say this. We have lots of excitement in the football space. Caleb Williams, that quarterback from USC, right? He went to Chicago Bears. I think people think he's a generational talent, right? And then in basketball, you got Victor Wambach, who, he is a generational talent. I wasn't sure if he was going to make it through the first season without any injuries, but he did. So now I think he's got a very bright future ahead of him. So there's a lot of excitement going on in that space. And I do think that, for the beginning of 2024, Scarlet and Violet has some great sets and some great cards, but we just probably haven't had that huge level of excitement yet. So I think later on we're going to see this catch up, but this is just a really cool, it's a really cool graph, and I'm going to be interested to see how the rest of 2024 plays out. Now, next thing we look at is the most graded subjects, and this is a little bit of a boring one to look at, except guess what? Monkey D. Luffy. There we go. We got some One Piece representation. I was so excited that One Piece wasn't totally out of the list when we were going through this video. So excited to see Monkey on there. Monkey did drop from number 4 to number 6. And then again, if you look in the far right, the growth versus April is down 24%, where if you look at the column from top to bottom, pretty much everybody else is in the black. So Monkey is certainly losing some of the momentum. Don't know enough about One Piece to kind of pontificate on why that is, but I will tell you right now, Monkey is slowly slipping out of the top 10. Now, Charizard is number 1. No big surprise there. Pikachu number 2. Again, no big surprise there. But what is interesting to me is, speaking of One Piece, we had Nami on here last month. Nami has dropped off, and look at our boy Eevee jumping up there. Absolutely love it. Really, really cool to see such an awesome and strong list of characters right here. I do hope that at some point Pokemon can figure out a way to get another character on here. Like, we've been doing this for a couple of years now, and it seems to be the same list. It's always Charizard, Pikachu, Mew, Mewtwo, Blastoise, Gengar, Umbreon, Venusaur, Rayquaza. Like, there's a lot of repetitiveness in the most graded subjects. And when I talk about things that, I don't know, they don't concern me, but things that I'm hoping Pokemon can do is they can find a new character to get people excited about, to see a new one pop up on this list. Next one right here is Gem Rates by Era. I tell everybody you got to take this with a big grain of salt. Don't make this, your barometer on what company you're going to grade with. I will say, Beckett's TCG in the 2020s, their gem rate is way high compared to where it's been in the past. Beckett is always high simply because, as I said earlier, people are black label chasing, but 85.6% is it's stupid high, right? Like, it's higher than we've seen in a long time. Now, that might have to do with the overall grading volume going down, so people are really, truly only sending in black labels, but I thought that was an interesting call out. Now, the other thing is PSA is slightly down a little bit versus last month, and SGC in that 2020, so the ultra modern space, SGC's gem rate is at 52.2% last month. That is really down. That is way down. So again, take it with a grain of salt. These numbers are super fluid. It all depends on what gets submitted, but it is interesting to check out the gem rate from your favorite company. And I love how we break it down here by the different eras, 2020s, 2010s, 2000s, 1990s, 1980s, all the way back there. I think is really, really cool. Now, the next thing we talk about right here is the total graded at PSA by month. And this is specifically for TCG cards. And you can see that from this bar graph, there is ebbs and flows, right? So last year we saw April, May, June, down, 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 right? Like significant drops. But then if you look at 2022, April to May was a big jump, and then it was flat for 6 months straight. Now this year, April to May, we saw a little bit of an increase. So what does that mean? I don't know. It's not following any patterns, which is very interesting to me. I'm a data-driven guy. I like to follow patterns. So to see that it's up a little bit, is it going to follow the 2022 trend, and is it going to flatten out for the next 6 months? Or is it going to do what it did in 2023, where if you look from June, July, really August, September, October, it shoots up like a freaking cannon. So this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on to try and figure out what's going on. But one of the things that I have a little bit of concern about is if you look, I mean, the grading volume is really low. I mean, overall, if you look, I don't like seeing that, you know, PSA's overall grading volume is at an all-time high, but the TCG grading volume at PSA is at a far cry from all-time high. That includes the fact that they've opened up the grading center in Japan, which I think gets a ton of TCG submissions. So that's one of the things that I said gives me a little bit of concern. We'll have to see how this goes further down the road. But again, PSA is at all-time high, and obviously TCG is far from an all-time high. Final slide right here. I always end with this. A strong grading market is good for all of us, okay? Like, I think that it is great when people who collect cards care enough to have them graded, because I think that that is the best way to encapsulate, protect your cards, and to get a true investment quality out of them is to have them graded. Nothing against people who have binders, nothing against people who have raw cards, but when you're thinking about the people who are buying things for true investments, I think all of them are getting the cards graded. So when I see the grading trends at PSA going up and up and up over all of these years, this one goes all the way back to March of 2021, it makes me feel as if the investability of this hobby is continuing to grow, which makes me feel really good. Now, as I said a minute ago, you know, the TCG grading is on a little bit of a downward trend. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. Are people focusing on sealed? I've been saying that the last couple months, but I mean, let's be honest here. Sword and Shield booster boxes are becoming harder and harder to find. They're certainly almost all out of stock on the Pokemon Center. Is it because Scarlet and Violet isn't getting the love it deserves? A lot of us on here believe that, hey, listen, this was an incredible start for Scarlet and Violet, but it might be overshadowed a little bit by the awesomeness of the end of the Sword and Shield era. So I always also say this, listen, don't let short-term price fluctuations, don't let short-term grading fluctuations, don't let any of this, you know, affect what you're going to buy or believe in. You know better than anybody else what the future of this market could hold. You know what's a great investment, you know what's a great buy, so stick to your guns, do what you do. This is simply to give you an idea of what's going on in the hobby as a whole. If you made it to the end and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. If you got questions or comments, drop them down below, and as always, if you like what you see, give us a big ol' thumbs up. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you later. See you, everybody. Bye.